Good afternoon. Thank you, Montana, for that wonderful introduction. And of course, I want to thank the Anti-Defamation League, especially your director and CEO, Jonathan Greenblatt, as well as your entire board, your staff, and the thousands of dedicated volunteers for your work to inspire action in the fight against hate, intolerance, and injustice. On the morning of October 7th, I was traveling with my son when I got a call from my grandmother, a Rebbitzin of blessed memory. She didn't say good morning. She didn't even say hello. She simply said, "We are at war." She didn't say who was at war, but I knew. As the news of the attack filtered around the world, it was immediately clear that this was now a seminal moment in history. In the days that followed, I traveled with the mayor to synagogues around the city as he delivered his powerful message: we are not all right. And sadly, those words would prove prophetic in ways that we did not yet imagine. Right here in New York, the city with the largest Jewish population outside of Israel anywhere in the world, anti-Jewish hate was on full display. As a Jewish mother and daughter, born and raised in this city, it was chilling to see the symbols of anti-Semitism plastered to walls, displayed at rallies, and painted on subway cars. It was so open, so shameless, so empowered, and it shook the foundations of what we thought being Jewish in New York City meant. There was fear, there was anger, there was helplessness, and let's be honest, there still is. But there is also clarity about what needs to be done and how the New York City Police Department will do it. On the morning of October 7th, anti-Semitic crimes in New York City were actually down 20% for the year. But from that day to the end of 2023, they jumped up 80%. And in 2024, they rose another 7%. And represented 54% of all hate crimes reported in this city. In the past 17 months, we've dealt with thousands of anti-Israel protests across the 5 boroughs. Many of the college campus protests were especially despicable, with open, blatant displays of intolerance. Jewish students were harassed and intimidated and threatened. Buildings were ransacked, and campus life was completely upended. And in many cases, the protesters' target was not and is not Israeli policy or geopolitics or even the horrors of war, but the Jewish people themselves. I want to be very clear. I speak on behalf of the women and men of the NYPD when I say much of this rhetoric is vile. At the same time, as an organization whose members have sworn an oath to support, to protect, and to defend the Constitution, the NYPD will follow the law and we will uphold the First Amendment, even when the protected language is deeply offensive to our own sensibilities. But make no mistake, anyone who commits a crime will be arrested. They will be held accountable, and our city will not go backwards, not on my watch. Since October 7th, officers from the NYPD's Intelligence and Counterterrorism Bureau have made thousands of visits to sensitive locations citywide, like synagogues and Jewish schools. They have conducted thousands of canine, bomb, and radiation sweeps. They've also disrupted significant threats. Take, for instance, a Canadian ISIS supporter who was arrested by the Joint Terrorism Task Force for plotting to attack a Brooklyn synagogue on the first anniversary of October 7th. And just 2 weeks ago, I gave the order to shut down the Lincoln Tunnel during rush hour to apprehend a Utah man who had threatened a synagogue in Manhattan. Officers were able to identify, track, and arrest him within hours of his initial threats. Obviously, this is very personal to me. As a Jew, as a New Yorker, and as your police commissioner. As a Jew, I was so humbled at the outpouring of thanks and appreciation that I received from around the world after I was sworn in wearing my Magen David. It honestly surprised me because my Jewish identity is not something that I put on and take off. It's not an affect, nor is it a political statement. It is who I am and who I will always be. And as your police commissioner, I promise that the NYPD will continue to combat anti-Semitism no matter where the threats originate, and our hate crimes task force will remain on the front lines of this fight. And we at the NYPD have the backing of everyday New Yorkers who know that the most diverse city on the planet must be and will be a place where everyone can live and work and worship free from fear. This is not just our hope for the future, it is our fundamental responsibility right now. So thank you again to the ADL for the opportunity to address this important summit, and to everyone who stands against prejudice and hate. And thank you all for your continued support of the women and the men of the New York City Police Department. Thank you.